Chapter 2. Sin Screening. Dark Comforts. Jacob awakens to the horrid stench of cigarettes combined with another smell that makes him gag. The granular filth of the cheap Spanish tiles on the bathroom floor beneath him feels sticky and littered with debris. He senses pain throughout his body and slowly pushes himself up from the floor to assess the damage. As he begins to rise, a shooting sensation snaps through his left arm, and he rolls over onto his back. The sharp throbbing in his forearm is not as raw as a fracture, so the young man assumes that his arm was sprained during the night. He breathes out slowly, smelling the sour contents of many drunken stomachs having been recently emptied, and is suddenly inspired to vacate the area. The young billionaire recalls his recent nightmare from the memories of Thretch, another horrible death at the hands of scorned men. He can almost smell the sea exactly as it was presented in the vision, and the lanky body of Terran plunging to his death on the large pirate ship. Jacob opens his eyes wide, wondering what events have led him to this place. After a few seconds of trying to remember something about the previous night, he hears the sound of a squeaking hinge from a door opening and closing in quick succession. Jacob blinks his eyes and immediately notices that his left eye is nearly swollen shut. The affluent entrepreneur hears footsteps approaching from the front as he uses the fingers of his right hand to inspect his face for damage. "Are you still in there, you little bastard?" the hostile voice of a woman calls out, expressing her disdain for Jacob with a Brooklyn accent. "My husband wants you out of this bar right now," she orders in a righteous tone, trying to hide her fear as she speaks. "Do you hear me, psycho?" the bar owner's wife demands as she kicks the bottom of Jacob's shoe. "We need you out of here." "I am injured," Jacob mutters, gazing with his right eye for the first time to see that he is lying on his back in a bathroom stall with his feet protruding underneath the door. "Yeah, welcome to the club," the woman exclaims with bitter sarcasm. "You have 5 minutes to get cleaned up and leave, or I'll let these boys tear you apart." She finishes in a threatening tone as the door opens and closes again. Jacob sits up immediately, feeling a warm rush throughout his body, not the type of buzz one gets with alcohol, but something much stronger. The moment he moves his abdominal muscles, Jacob realizes that it is a mistake. He senses the entire surface of his stomach and chest reporting trauma, causing him to tremble. The young man peers down at his damaged arms, noticing several lacerations across his exposed skin. The thumbnail of his right hand is completely smashed and turning purple beneath the surface with compressed blood. Every muscle in his left arm seems to be shrieking discomfort, and he can feel bruising in the bones of the same. He is wearing a navy blue polo shirt and a pair of black cargo pants. Underneath the stall door, he can see that his running sneakers are covered in mud, tar, blood, dirt, and what looks like specks of asphalt. This comes as a surprise to the 23-year-old, since the shoes were essentially brand new just a day ago. The foul odors that are waiting across the bathroom floor rise with the heat of the furnace as it manages to bring some comfort into the dingy bathroom. Despite his multiple injuries, Jacob manages to get to his feet, pushing himself up using the enclosure wall at his left arm. When he is fully upright, the young man notices a stinging sensation coming from both of his ankles, an almost paralyzing tenderness that makes him wonder if he recently jumped from a 2-story building. After this full assessment of the damage to his body, Jacob shuffles to the black stall door and slides the lever clockwise to release the pin. The door opens with an odd squeak, and Jacob thrusts it out of his way as he half stumbles to the sink for a bit of cleaning. When he reaches the white porcelain, Jacob is taken aback by the rancid smell of digestive fluids on the floor of this area. Both sinks are coated with a bit of cigarette ash, and he notices that they have been recently used to clean blood from someone's body. Jacob turns on the water hastily, recalling the threat that was issued by the frightened woman just moments ago. He rapidly uses the surprisingly clean water to remove the blood and filth from his face, hands, and arms. His breathing is kept to a minimum in an effort to abstain from the smell of his unfortunate surroundings. Once his hands and face are clean, he is not surprised to see that there is no means to dry them. For the second time in the past few minutes, Jacob notices that he is feeling wonderful for someone who has been through so much pain. His body is literally warm all over, and although movement causes him a slight amount of agony, it is easily bearable. He rubs his hands together feverishly, staring at the corroded sign that reads "Men" on the door before him. The sign looks blurry through his left eye, and Jacob breathes in deeply, opening his eyelid as far as it will go in an attempt to correct his vision. His throat convulses a bit, and he feels stomach acid rising up to the back of his mouth, but he steadies himself and lets it flow immediately back down. After one last look around the lonely bathroom, Jacob pushes the door slightly with his right hand, and then forces his body against it aggressively to help him exit the restroom quicker. "Shh, shh. Guys, here he comes," a man whispers from behind the bar to Jacob's left, sounding cautious and focused, as if a bomb were about to go off. "I know that we're all hurting here, but let's not piss off the hurricane again. We don't need any more fighting." Jacob slowly takes a look around the bar, noticing that a considerable amount of damage has been caused by what appears to be a recent brawl. There is a group of 3 large Polynesian men standing off to his right, watching his every movement. One of them is leaning against the wall, nursing his bare stomach with a crude ice pack fashioned from a white terry cloth provided by the waitstaff. He seems to be in agony, observing Jacob from a pair of deep blue eyes nestled within his large, round face. The other 2 Polynesian men are clad in red and yellow t-shirts, complemented by green denim shorts. Their genetics and clothing are similar, giving Jacob the impression that they are brothers. One of the men is holding a makeshift ice pack against the side of his head, gazing at Jacob with tears streaming from his right eye. His brother is holding napkins over a broken nose, and from the blood seeping toward the large man's fingers, Jacob surmises that it will soon be time for the man to replace them. "So, $10,000 each, then?" the bartender asks with caution, gazing around the bar as if to appease his uneasy patrons, trying to confirm a deal with Jacob. "You told me that you've got money, and we looked you up online. It's gonna take $10,000 to keep everyone here quiet." Jacob shuffles over to the bartender, not recalling having made this offer, but grateful for the opportunity to avoid police questioning and the negative press. His short journey toward the bar is akin to the haunted houses he used to visit as a child. Every man and woman he walks past has injuries in various combinations of bruises, cuts, scratches, swollen eyes, and even broken fingers. They look like a group of people who just survived a fierce battle in a poverty-stricken nation, rather than customers at a local pub. Each of the bar patrons keeps his or her distance, watching Jacob with distrust and unmistakable fear. When the young man is only 3 feet from the bar, an older woman withdraws from the group of wooden tables at his right, surrendering herself to the darkest corner of the room. Jacob observes the small, dingy establishment with caution, not recalling at what point he decided to venture into this place. The lights are cheap and dim, hanging from the ceiling like a gallows of economic distress. Everything within this building screams desperation to Jacob, from the tacky red polyester fabric that covers the small booths to the unkempt wooden surfaces of the tables and chairs. The young billionaire sneers at the leering faces of the bar patrons, noticing the cheap clothing and hefty, bloated bodies before him. Men with poorly groomed beards and mustaches, some of whose faces are soaked with blood. Women who are hanging out of their clothing all over, appearing to have wandered out of their homes without a shower. Jacob places his hands atop the filthy bar surface, smirking somewhat at how much this reminds him of movies that he has seen featuring saloons from the 1800s. "So, does your elbow hurt as much as my mouth?" the bartender asks in a painful attempt at humor, failing to sound friendly as his voice cracks mid-sentence. As though the greatest painkiller ever invented has been infused into him, he observes the bartender silently for a moment, realizing that all eyes in the building are watching his every movement. The bartender seems gentle despite his ratty gray hair and prematurely aged skin. As a man in his early 50s, the bartender more resembles someone creeping into his 70s. His frame is lanky, and he is clad in faded blue jeans and a white t-shirt covering his torso. The pocket of his t-shirt contains a packet of Marlboro Reds, and Jacob surmises that the ignited cigarette in the cheap jade ashtray behind the man used to be among them. "So $10,000, and you make this all go away?" Jacob asks with growing paranoia, having not a clue for which part of town he has embarked. $10,000 each, the aged bartender states explicitly, trying to hide his fear long enough to ensure full payment. "You told us that every person here tonight that was injured would get $10,000, and every witness would get $2,000. The young man breathes in deeply through his nostrils, sucking in as much air as his lungs can contain. He then exhales aggressively, lowering his head and shoulders as the carbon dioxide exits his body into the atmosphere of the lonely bar. The crowd around him moves uncomfortably as his frustration is felt through the place like a wave of pressure from a jet that has just broken the sound barrier. Some of the patrons shift from one foot to the other, while those with worse injuries silently make their way closer to the exits. The discomfort is growing, like the splitting of atoms, rising with heat and energy at 1,000 meters per second. "That last part is bullshit, isn't it?" Jacob asks suspiciously, watching a bit of spittle fly from his lips and land on the bar as he speaks. "I'm a business guy, and I deal with liars all day long. Hell, I was raised by one of the biggest liars in the game. So tell me again about what our deal was, and leave off that last bullshit about me paying each witness $2,000. He finishes with radiant and primitive flair, jutting his chin out at the barkeep with unholy disregard. "Irene, do you have a list of the injured people?" the bartender asks his younger wife, holding up his right hand and turning to face his spouse. A woman with thick horn-rimmed eyeglasses is leaning back against the counter where the liquor is stored. Her elbows are stretched defiantly backward, setting her body at an odd angle as her toes are pointed toward the bar, with her feet pushed out as far as they will go. She is smoking a cigarette and staring indignantly at Jacob, seeming to be the only person in the area that is not afraid of him. The woman shows signs of aging, looking to be in her early 40s, and, unlike most of the bar patrons, isn't showing signs of injury. Her body is mostly hidden by a pair of unassuming coveralls with a white t-shirt beneath them, making her breasts seem almost invisible. She takes a drag off the cigarette and daintily removes it from her mouth with her right hand, blowing a heavy wave of smoke in Jacob's direction. At that same moment, she uses her left hand to ruffle her shoulder-length curly brown hair, staring at the young entrepreneur with her light blue eyes. "How does your arm feel?" the bartender's wife finally concedes, flicking her cigarette at Jacob as she snatches up a small spiral notebook from the counter and steps over to the bar next to her husband. "Does it feel like someone caught you with a baseball bat? How about your eye?" she asks with further scorn, shifting her weight into a posture of disapproval, folding her arms rigidly across her coveralls. "Can you feel the sting, like someone clipped you with a Louisville Slugger?" Jacob stares at the woman evenly, not feeling intimidated, but nonetheless he reacts to her words, and the fiery ashes of the cigarette that dropped to the floor near him. His eyes flutter a bit under the pale lighting, and he looks toward the back counter at the woman's right, seeing a somewhat bloody, broken baseball bat atop the prep station. "I ain't never seen that before in my life," the woman announces, shaking her head as she gives a small notebook to her husband. "You snapped my baseball bat in half with your left arm, splinters and all. Then you just kept going like some kind of runaway train. Are you on medication? Escaped the nut house? High on drugs, maybe? Shoot, it don't matter. Nobody here is going to say a word, as long as you pay up." "We had to rush 4 men and 2 women to the hospital," the bartender reads from the small notepad, glancing up at Jacob with disdain. "They had some injuries to their insides." "Why did you have to hit 'em so hard, son? I mean, Jesus, I've seen bar fights, broken up plenty in my 20-some-odd years, but what happened tonight? Jesus," he sighs with frustration, turning away for a moment and placing his left hand on his hip. "In all, you injured 27 people up in my bar, not to mention the damage." "How did it start?" Jacob floats with sincere curiosity, letting his guard down for half a second. It started like a goddamn fire, the bartender answers with a shocked expression, having a bit of anxiety and distrust at the advent of Jacob's poor memory. You're not right in the head, are you, boy? It's stupid for me to even ask, the man says with regret, tossing the notebook on the bar before him. I know. Why would you bother? His wife interrupts with passion, shaking her head at Jacob. I've never seen someone cut through a crowd just whooping on everyone without a reason. You're lucky nobody died, because money or no money, your ass would be in jail, she finishes with bold reverence, providing the crowd with a teaspoon of justice, despite their desire for buckets more. Prison, the woman says with subtle insecurity. I mean, your ass would be in prison. So I owe you $270,000, Jacob surmises in a cold fashion, starting to realize that what took place this evening was due to a much darker influence. Who should I make the check out to? He quips with an electric stare, watching the bartender's face transform to deeper shades of disgust and betrayal. That ain't funny, dude. You hurt a lot of people tonight, and scared even more. The man raises his voice gradually, heaving his chest in a panicked fervor as he eyes Jacob with ravenous instability. Yeah, no shit, his wife adds with bitter regret for their bartered hospitality. Why don't you spend the next 5 to 10 years in prison to think about how you should treat people? With this statement, she snatches a cordless phone from under the bar and begins to dial rapidly. Relax, Jacob orders, realizing that he can't easily slide out of this situation, especially with nearly 24 angry people ready to stampede him at any moment. Do you have a checking account? Yeah, the bartender's wife says, showing respect for the first time as she hangs up the cordless phone. How are you going to deposit a check at this hour? It's almost midnight. I'll do a wire transfer. Jacob begins with a bit of frustration, comparing this experience to doing business with natives who are seeing gunpowder explode for the first time. How are you going to get the bank to transfer the money? The bartender inquires in a sarcastic manner. There's nobody to complete the transaction. The bank manager will take my call. Just give me the phone, Jacob insists, holding out his right hand slowly with the fingers outstretched. Why would he help you with a transfer in the middle of the night? The bartender's wife conveys with suspicion, smiling from the right side of her mouth as though she knows Jacob is trying to play her. Because he works for me, Jacob evokes with elitist confidence. It's my family's bank, Calbra Atlantic. Now, give me the phone, the young billionaire states with haste, snapping his fingers as if preparing a meal for a group of eager children. The bartender's wife slowly passes the phone to Jacob, handing it to him like a precious newborn baby. Write down your routing and account numbers on that notepad, the young man orders with a nod as he rapidly dials a number on the keypad of the phone. Ben, this is Jacob. Fine. No, listen. I'm in a bad situation and I need to do a transfer. Jacob raises his eyes to the bar where the woman has turned the notepad around so that he can relay the numbers to his banker. Yes, I need to do the transfer right now. Well, whatever then. I'll just pull all of our money out. Why don't we plan to withdraw everything in the next 48 hours? Yeah, I know you're tired. That's okay. Are you going to take care of me then? Good man. Sure, no problem. Go turn on your computer and I'll wait. After a long, uncomfortable silence, the entrepreneur leans forward, looking over the numbers before him, and reads them off twice to his banker for confirmation. Yep, that's right. I need you to transfer $270,000 into that account. Yes, that's what I want. Yes, I can confirm. No, I'm not drunk or under duress. My PIN number? Jesus, Ben, it's 0825. Okay, thanks, bye. Jacob sets the cheap, white cordless phone atop the bar with pride, as though having just scored a touchdown. Call your bank, he instructs the couple across the bar with condescending malice. Check your balance. With festering impatience, the bartender's wife snatches the phone off the counter and frantically dials the toll-free number to her local bank. The entire room is filled with greedy anticipation as the woman navigates through the automated menus to get her balance information. After punching in her account number, zip code, and PIN number, she turns on the speakerphone for everyone to hear. Your balance as of January 22nd, 2025 is $272,474.37. The dingy serving area of the bar is suddenly ablaze with gratuitous cheers, and Jacob feels two hands pat him subsequently on the back and shoulders. He turns with surprise to see dozens of battered faces alive with the knowledge that the money they sought and the pleasure it buys are within their reach. The billionaire turns back to the bar, and his face transforms into a wicked smile. "It's all yours now," he broadcasts from his dry throat to the entire room, holding out his right hand to the bar owners. "Keep it all for yourselves or share it with your customers. I don't really care either way, but it's all yours," he repeats with a short wave of his right hand as he walks rapidly toward the front door. "And I'm free and clear. Good night." "You better give us our share of that money, Lyle," an older man shouts from the center of the crowd, growling at the bar owner with distrust. "Yeah, give us our money, Lyle," a woman concurs with fiery indignation, stomping on the floor as she locks eyes with the aging bar owners. "You son of a bitch," the bar owner's wife says silently, mouthing the words to Jacob and glaring at him through her glasses. Jacob winks with his right eye at the small business owners. As a flood of questions comes flowing from their patrons in the serving area, he watches the bartender, who is shaking his head in disgust, and manages a satisfied grin before departing into the frigid night air. Jacob steps out into the modern ruins of what looks like a poor Brooklyn, New York neighborhood, wondering how he got this far from his Park Avenue penthouse. As he steps to the street corner under the solitary streetlight, his hands immediately begin to shiver from the cold. There is an odd chill in the air, and beneath the powerful lighting, he can see masses of frost that are hugging the sidewalk, wrapped around the aged concrete in a marriage of elemental bonding. In a brief mental vision, Jacob sees the flash of a little blonde girl, screaming as someone forces her into a locked container beneath the surface of the earth. Once she is secured in her subterranean prison, the steel surface is rapidly covered over with a foot of gravel. Blood begins to rush into his brain with mortal consequence as Jacob's mind reconstructs the events of the past few hours. He sees himself buying a few doses of heroin from a drug dealer, just 10 miles from where he is now standing. Jacob then recalls snapping some rubber tubing around his arm and gleefully injecting his body with the drug. Under the sporadic hum of the poorly maintained streetlights, Jacob remembers his journey on foot to the bar and the unprovoked attack that led to an all-out brawl. His internal visions led him to the moment where he snapped the baseball bat in half, damaging his left arm, after the bartender's wife used it to strike him near his left eye. This was the final act, inspired by nearly 30 minutes of fierce brawling, after which he stumbled into the bathroom and passed out in the stall. Jacob sucks air into his lungs with remorse and terror, realizing that it was he who imprisoned the little girl underground. "She's going to suffocate," he thinks to himself, feeling perspiration coming forth from his underarms and forehead with the onset of panic. "What the hell is wrong with me?" he wonders silently, searching his cargo pants for a cell phone and determining that he only has his wallet. The young billionaire begins to convulse with immediate despair, realizing that he has no idea how much time has passed. His only conscious memories are from daylight hours, and he can't recall the size of the container that he used to entomb the little girl, or whether he marked the spot of her burial. Jacob grabs the back of his head in feverish horror, trying to work through the cloud of heroin-laced thoughts and logically map out a way to rescue his quarry. "Where the hell did I get her? Why did I take her?" Jacob demands of himself with a queasiness that he has never before felt. "Celeste is right. I'm losing my mind," he says aloud, trying harder to figure out in which direction he should travel to find his prisoner. Jacob turns suddenly at the sound of soft footsteps maneuvering in his direction, and is surprised to see a man in a black turban approaching from the south. As the man gets closer to the light, his Israeli features are shown in clear splendor. He appears to be fit and strong, running with militant force as he hefts his way deliberately across the pavement. The man has a long beard and dark skin from many years spent in the desert. His eyeglasses and the slight patches of gray in his facial hair make him appear wise and foreboding. The powerful Israeli looks to be in his mid-40s, having aged well. Thretch awakens from his slumber within Jacob and immediately sees the Jewish man running towards him. Through his glasses, the man stares at Jacob with a guise of ownership and hatred, a righteous and ancient vendetta conveyed through labored breathing and deliberate movements under the wintry sky. "Nicodemus!" Thretch shouts from within Jacob's body, willing his host to start sprinting and nearly tearing his Achilles tendon. Jacob feels his body moving faster than he has ever experienced, propelled by his terror of a man known to be nothing but fearless. He is nearly struck by a car as Thretch forces him onto a reckless path of frozen streets and unknown dangers. Jacob can hear the accelerated footsteps of Nicodemus behind him, and he is awestruck by the speed that the middle-aged man is exhibiting. He urges his body forward as the mysterious Israeli gains on him, 1 inch at a time, refusing to back off even slightly. Jacob hears the sound of a knife being snatched from its scabbard, and he is instantly inspired to run with the passion of a world-class Olympian. After running for less than a block, Jacob concedes that several nights without sleep, a strenuous bar brawl, and being dosed with heroin are severely limiting his movements. The young entrepreneur knows that if he doesn't act quickly, the knife that is trailing only a few feet behind him in the capable hands of Nicodemus will soon be his demise.